Welcome back everyone to Counter-Hegemony. Today's episode is the first part of a series about the crisis of social democracy. Contemporary capitalism is in many ways shaped by social democracy. Just think of the notions of socially just wages, a regulated market, the right of workers to organize, wealth distribution, social welfare, the ethos of solidarity, or the understanding of companies as organizations with social responsibilities. These modifications of capitalism can be traced back to the historical struggles of social democratic parties. Today, social democracy is in its deepest crisis since World War II. By the end of the 1990s, Social Democrats governed 13 out of 15 EU member states. Since then, social democratic parties in many countries have suffered significant declines in votes. This downward trend was particularly visible following the 2008 global financial crisis. Austerity, stagnant or declining wages, rising levels of social inequality, and a lack of social security for large groups of the population have accelerated the crisis of social democracy. The most pronounced examples for the social democratic decline occurred in Greece, France, Italy, and the Netherlands. However, there were also exceptions. The Labour Party's shift to the left under Jeremy Corbyn in Great Britain, the social democratic governments in Portugal and Spain, and the victory of the SPD in the 2021 German elections. In Denmark, the Social Democrats also celebrated a revival, after shifting the party to the right, especially on the issue of migration and the reception of refugees. The rest of Scandinavia, but also Germany, the Netherlands, Italy, France, and Austria, witnessed the rise of right-wing populists at the expense of social democratic parties. So what explains the crisis of social democracy? To provide an answer to this question, I will analyze 4 interrelated factors that help understand the decline of social democracy. A first factor that explains the current crisis of social democracy is the transformation of capitalism over the past decades. At the root of that transformation is a deep crisis of capitalism. More concretely, the demise of the Fordist-Keynesian growth model of the post-war decades. That model was based on mass production, mass consumption, relatively high wages, regulated markets, welfare state provisions, and full employment. Since the early 1970s, capital has abandoned the post-war class compromise and pushed towards liberalization, deregulation, and privatization. The transition to neoliberalism has not only weakened the labor movement and trade unions, it has also demolished the economic foundations of social democracy and deprived the policies of redistribution of their material basis. Under neoliberal globalization, it has become increasingly difficult to pursue a demand-oriented economic policy and to expand the welfare state. Why is that? The internationalization of production and the integration of markets intensifies competition between locations. Global freedom of movement and deregulation of financial markets strengthen the position of capital. It now has the threat of capital outflow at its disposal at any time. As a result, policy instruments such as progressive taxation and expansionary fiscal policy, on which the electoral success of social democracy in the post-war period was based, are losing their effect. These developments have made it more difficult for social democratic parties to pursue national policies geared to their constituency, such as securing social rights or combating inequality. In addition, European integration has limited the autonomy and sovereignty of member states. The EU has been a driving force behind neoliberal restructuring. It has established the primacy of market freedoms and of European competition law. It has imposed tight fiscal rules and deprived member states of the instrument of monetary policy. These reflections about the transformation of capitalism lead us to the question whether the decline of social democracy is inevitable. In the post-war era, social democracy relied for its policy on extraordinarily high growth rates. In times of crisis, however, any social compromise between labor and capital breaks down. What comes to the fore is the contradiction between the expansion of capital, which leads to the concentration of wealth and economic power in the hands of a few, and democracy. This contradiction is less evident in times of economic growth, when high profits are compatible with full employment, rising wages, and a growth in consumption. Viewed from this perspective, social democracy and capitalism are only compatible in exceptional situations. A second factor that explains the current crisis of social democracy are changes of the social structure. These shifts are organically related to the transformation of capitalism that I've just discussed. The shrinking of the industrial working class, which has always been the core constituency of social democratic parties, has contributed to their decline. This process has gone hand in hand with the weakening of trade unions. Trade unions were once an indispensable link between the industrial working class and social democratic parties. They are now losing members and struggling with the changing composition of the workforce. The declining level of unionization has deepened the crisis of social democracy. With the transformation of an industrial society into a post-industrial society, social democracy has lost its traditional clientele. To prevent a permanent drop in voter favorability, social democratic parties have increasingly shifted their programmatic orientation towards the middle class. Most parties have also adopted a liberal stance on social-cultural issues such as immigration. This strategy has made many workers politically homeless. Large sectors of the working class have turned away from social democracy and towards right-wing populist parties. That does it for today. Please leave your comments below and don't forget to subscribe. As always, thanks so much for tuning in. I'll see you next time.